coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
All right, we're back live, my friends. I want to lay out the geopolitical strategy of the globalists and their social engineers very simply, because I usually spend my time getting into fine nuances of it, but to give you a general summation. The private global banking cartel has conservatively created 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives. It is a debt black hole, hundreds of times bigger than all the real wealth in the world. Even the Washington Post admits this. They buy off your governments with the made-up fiat currency. They need police state systems in place to make sure that the population never gets control of their nation again. Their political creation is the UN that poses as a humanitarian organization, but in its own annals admits it is a eugenics population reduction program designed to keep the third world from developing. Because if the third world ever developed and developed sophisticated weapon systems, technological systems, they would be sophisticated enough not to be overtaken by the globalist and kept in debt, servitude, and bondage. Now, separately, and you see this in the news all the time, the post-industrial world, getting rid of our industrial base, getting back to nature. The stated goal of the UN, Club of Rome, Council on Foreign Relations, is to deindustrialize the West and to destroy the middle class. The ultra-rich call this the final revolution. They don't want you doing financially well. They don't want you being self-sufficient. This is the stated enemy. They want you controlled, working for a Fortune 100 corporation at near the poverty line so that you're so busy just trying to survive, you can never challenge the monopoly of power of the world's ruling class. There is a continuity of agenda from Australia to the United States, from Chile to Canada, from Japan to South Africa. The same programs, the same international organizations, the same standardization. And when you get into the white papers of these people, they openly say we're going to have a Singaporean model globally. And they go on to admit the communist Chinese model is a Singaporean model. And if you want to know what life is going to be like, and I made a big deal out of this because I happened to pick up a year-old copy a month or two ago of December 2010, January 2010, National Geographic. And it said right there, Singapore is great, tyranny's great, this is what our government wants to do. Their population is at a 1.2 replacement rate. That means they're dying. For every 2 adults, they have 1.2 children. They have no free speech. They're totally enslaved. And the article says this is the model to go with. So they're just out in the open pushing this. Now, what does that have to do with Egypt? The globalists put Hosni Mubarak in. For 30 years, he's ruled with an iron fist. The majority of the U.S.-run black site torture centers, where they even take U.S. citizens to have their teeth ripped out, to be put on the rack, to have their heart stopped with drugs, to have their kids raped in front of them. That's in the Army's own reports, the General Tagumba report. I mean, you're talking about hell on earth, building the army of darkness. Our government, which isn't our government, it's a hijacker. It's the corporate globalist social Darwin hijacker. The eugenicist hijackers have turned Egypt into a fortress of pure evil. Now, continuing, they are able, with their actuaries, with their computer systems. In fact, Jaron, did I print that article about Google being able to predict the future now? Oh, it's right in front of me. It'd bite me if it was a snake. When I talked earlier before the break about globalist modeling and globalist operations, what they're doing is a 21st century mode of what the British Great Game was. If you don't know what the British Great Game is, you can just look it up in an encyclopedia. Basically, the British would play different powers off against each other. They would divide and conquer, help this little bitty island with a small population dominate more than half the known world, to where the sun never set on the British Empire. And they're taking that system and using NSA predictive systems where when they track enough cell phone users, enough internet users, enough of your daily habits, they know how to predict what you're going to do individually every day by tracking your iPhone or your Droid, and they have those in Egypt, at about 99% accuracy. The government knows who you're going to call next with 93% accuracy. This is their admissions, because they see patterns in what you do that you don't consciously see. You know, a lot of people, when they join a government agency or something, are given these thousands of questions, psychological exams, trying to find out really, truly who you are or if you're deceptive. Well, imagine what they know off what you watch on TiVo, tracking what you watch, when you flip the channel, what you surf on the internet, where you go, what you do, where you pull in and eat, what you Google, what you Yahoo. And so it's now admitted Google is NSA snooping software given to the public, and we think we're going into Google to find information out. But it's like, to use a analogy from Lord of the Rings, when you're looking into a crystal, it can look both ways. Sauron can look right back out at you. You understand? In fact, he is looking right back out at you and wants to know what you want to look at, wants to look into your mind. But this isn't a crystal ball in a fictitious, sword and sorcerer fantasy. This is real. And over a decade ago, I warned you about this because I was reading MIT magazine that's public. I was studying this as they were laughing about it, laughing at us, the profane slaves, laughing at how we won't even be needed in the future as soon as they get the robotic system in place. See, human life has always been cheap. Now it's worthless. Now it's worse than worthless. It's garbage. It has to be gotten rid of. It has to be carried out. Now, here's the headline, Steve Watson, but then it links through to Reuters, Associated Press. Google and CIA plow millions into huge recorded future monitoring project. And it goes on to say that the CIA and Google are investing jointly in a company started with Pentagon money that predicts the future with near certainty. This is just them coming out and telling you what they're already doing. Now, that said, what does this have to do with Egypt? Hosni Mubarak, 30 years torturing, murdering, slaughtering, our government saying how great he is. Why do you think the government came out on Thursday and Friday and said they were backing Hosni Mubarak? They later bragged because they like people to know what they're doing who are thinkers. So everything's hidden in plain view. They'll have a general propaganda, but then they'll have the admission in plain view. They admitted in the Wall Street Journal and Reuters, those articles are up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, that, the State Department is financing this whole thing. It's all admitted. And they are going to put in Mohammed al-Baradi, who is UN, who is CIA. And we found that if we backed Mubarak publicly, that would make his people become even more enraged and attacking. See that cold-blooded manipulation? So they're flushing their little darling murderer down the toilet right now. Their new UN puppet, who will shoot them up with the vaccines and call for abortion, Dr. Mohammed al-Baradi, he's demanding that Hosni Mubarak resign. I'm going to come back and go through the rest of this and how it ties in.